the Incroyables, French, kʁwajabl, Incredibles, and their female counterparts, the mɛveilleuses, French, mɛʁvɛjøz, marvelous women, roughly equivalent to fabulous divas, were members of a fashionable aristocratic subculture in Paris during the French Directory, 1795 to 1799. Whether as catharsis or in a need to reconnect with other survivors of the Reign of Terror, they greeted the new regime with an outbreak of luxury, decadence, and even silliness. They held hundreds of balls and started fashion trends in clothing and mannerisms that today seem exaggerated, affected, or even effete, decadent, self-indulgent. Some devotees of the trend prefer to be called incoyable or meveilleuse, thus avoiding the letter R, as in révolution. Quote, when this period ended, society took a more sober and modest turn. Members of the ruling classes were also among the movement's leading figures, and the group heavily influenced the politics, clothing, and arts of the period. They emerged from the muscadins, a term for dandyish anti-Jacobin street gangs in Paris from 1793 who were important politically. For some 2 years, the terms are often used interchangeably, though the muscadins were of a lower social background, being largely middle-class. Social background. Ornate carriages reappeared on the streets of Paris the day after the execution, the 28th of July 1794, of Maximilien Robespierre, which brought an end to the Jacobin-era Committee of Public Safety and signaled the commencement of the Thermidorian reaction. There were masters and servants once more in Paris, and the city erupted in a furor of pleasure-seeking and entertainment. Theatres thrived, and popular music satirized the excesses of the Revolution. One popular song of the period called on the French people to share my horror and to send these drinkers of human blood back amongst the monsters from which they had sprung. Its lyrics rejoiced that your tormentors finally grow pale at the tardy dawn of vengeance. Many public balls were bals des victimes at which young aristocrats who had lost loved ones to the guillotine danced in mourning dress or wore black armbands, greeting one another with violent movements of the head as if in decapitation. A ball held at the Hôtel Thélesson on the Rue de Provence in the 9th arrondissement of Paris restricted its guest list to the grown children of the guillotined. Clothing and fashion. The mɛveilleuses scandalized Paris with dresses and tunics modeled after the ancient Greeks and Romans, cut of light or even transparent linen and gauze, sometimes so revealing they were termed woven air. Many gowns displayed cleavage and were too tight to allow pockets to carry even the handkerchief. The ladies had to use small bags known as reticules. They were fond of wigs, often choosing blonde because the Paris Commune had banned blonde wigs, but they also wore them in black, blue, and green. Enormous hats, short curls like those on Roman busts, and Greek-style sandals were the rage. The sandals tied above the ankle with crossed ribbons or strings of pearls. Exotic and expensive scents fabricated by perfume houses like Parfums Lubin were worn as both for style and as indicators of social station. The acutesse Italian, known as Our Lady of Thermidor, wore expensive rings on the toes of her bare feet and gold circlets on her legs. The Incroyables wore eccentric outfits, large earrings, green jackets, wide trousers, huge neckties, thick glasses, and hats topped by dog ears, their hair falling on their ears. Their musk-based fragrances earned them to the derogatory nickname muscadins among the lower classes, already applied to a wide group of anti-Jacobins. They wore bicorn hats and carried bludgeons, which they referred to as their executive power. Hair was often shoulder-length, sometimes pulled up in the back with a comb to imitate the hairstyles of the condemned. Some sported large monocles, and they frequently affected a lisp and sometimes a stooped hunchback posture. In addition to Madame Tallien, famous merveilleuses included Anne-Françoise Elizabeth Longy, Jean-François Julie Adélaïde Récamier, and two very popular créoles, Fortuné Hamelin and Hortense de Beauharnais. Hortense, a daughter of the Empress Josephine, married Louis Bonaparte and became the mother of Napoleon III. Fortuné was not born rich, but she became famous for her salons and her string of prominent lovers. Parisian society compared Germaine de Staël and Mme Raguet to Minerva and Juno and named their garments for Roman deities. Gowns were styled Flora Diana, and tunics were styled La Ceres and Minerva. The leading incroyable, Paul-François Jean-Nicolas, Vicomte de Barras, was one of 5 directors who ran the Republic of France and gave the period its name. He hosted luxurious feasts attended by royalists, repentant Jacobins, ladies, and courtesans. Since divorce was now legal, sexuality was looser than in the past. However, de Barras' reputation for immorality may have been a factor in his later overthrow, a coup that brought the French consulate to power and paved the way for Napoleon Bonaparte. Representation in the arts. The fictional nouveau riche social climber Madame Angot, awkwardly wearing ridiculous Greek clothing, parodied the merveilleuses in many plays of the period. Carl Vinet's caricatures of the wardrobes of the Incroyables and Merveilleuses met with contemporary popular success. Canadian webcomic artist Kate Beaton has created similar caricatures, which featured in her comic arc, A Vagrant, comparing the merveilleuses to the modern-day hipster subculture. Images of the period. People associated with Incroyables and Merveilleuses. Other meanings. Incroyable was an 18th-century French nickname for a yo-yo, then a fashionable toy. Notes and references. Notes. Bibliography. Barras, Paul. Memoirs de Barras. Membre du Directoire. 1895. Hachette. 1896. Clark, Joseph. Commemorating the Dead in Revolutionary France. Revolution and Remembrance. 1789–1799. Cambridge University Press. 2007. André Gaillot. ed. Une ancienne muscadine. Fortuné Hamelin. Lettres inédites 1839–1851. 1911. Émile Paul. 1911. Further reading. Borges. Cattle. The Age of Napoleon. Costume from Revolution to Empire. 1789–1815. Metropolitan Museum of Art. 1989. ISBN 0870995707. See also. Dandy. 1795–1820 in fashion. 1800s. Decade. Jean Lambert Tallien. La Fille de Madame Angot. Tête de Paris. Merveilleuses in fashion history. Merveilleuses. Incroyables. Muscadins. Petite maîtresses. Petit maîtres. Mirliflors. Inconcevables. Amazones. Muguets. Gandins. In French. Thumb letter from de Barras accepting the post of director. Thumb de Barras at the National Library of France.